it's kind of mentioned that kind of finished me, the Premier League. It just didn't finish me, it just finished me at the elite level. That was a good year, but tough year, and at times heartbreaking. I know it's very much a mental thing, so you kind of try and distance yourself from it, and I refuse to use the word Dartitis just as a mental thing. Knock-on effect of it was horrendous. It's that period was the most down, upset I've been in the sport, and tried everything, and it came down to when you're in a pressure situation, it ramped up.
Well, another one of the nicest men on the tour, Paul Lim. He's someone that you've got a little bit of beef with, isn't he?
I think, what did he say to me? He said to me last year, "You're still doing the commentary?" I said, "Oh, you got me the job, Paul." He kind of ended my career. It's like my last ever game. I've gone to my table and Joe's there. I've got my headphones from my iPod, like, these are having it. So I wrapped them around my finger. I couldn't break them, and I cut my finger and it started bleeding. And Cullen just went, "Should we go?"
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Dart Show podcast. Joining us today for this very special show is one of the nicest men on the tour, a former Lakeside champion, a multiple major finalist, and of course the one man you want to call if you've got a block sink in your hotel. Mark Webster. Mark, how you doing?
I'm good, Lou. I'm good. I'm even better after that intro. The nicest man on tour. I'll take that. But no, yeah, it'll be a little nice to scan through my career.
We're also joined, of course, across from me, Mr. Matt Edgar. Matt, you've been dining out on a 170 checkout against Gary Anderson for years, but today we're here to talk about Mark Webster.
I'm sure I'll slip it in at some point. I've managed to get in every conversation going so far, so I'll find a way to link it in, I'm sure.
So, Mark, how you doing? How's things going?
Yeah, I'm good. Keeping busy. Obviously, the media stuff with it. We're at the Grand Prix at the minute, and busy. Good time of year. I really like this time of year, and yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Loads of darts coming up, and get the best seat in the house, don't I? So everything's good at the minute.
Well, today we're turning the spotlight on your career. I know you're doing the punditry now and analysing the players on the tour, but today's all about you. So we want to start the beginning of your life, growing up in Wales, growing up as a young man. How were things for you as a young boy?
Yeah, good. Just I was brought up on a council estate, but it was great. I've had a good time growing up, a good upbringing, and it was just came from. I've got a nice family, older brother, older sister I look up to, and it was good, and just hope I can be like that for my give that bring it to my children now. But yeah, it was good fun.
So was darts a big thing in your life? Was it a big family thing for you? Was it something that you were always involved in at a young age?
Yes and no. My mother and my father played it more, so my mum, and you just you see the old trophy around the house. Not too many; they weren't up to too much, but it was kind of it was just something I like watching. I think I started watching it in the late '80s. Sort of, I think I remember Eric playing against Jockey Wilson, and I just liked watching it. And then I was old enough, I got some darts, and then you just go from one to another. And it just obviously I didn't think it'd be this big a part of my life, but I'm glad it is because it's been great fun.
So when did you notice that you had a talent for it? Was it quite young when you got that first set of darts? You thought, I can play here a bit, or did someone spot you in a practice board and say, look, I think you could go somewhere here?
But it was I had a youth club you could go to, and they divided it up into 12 to 14, 14 to 16. And I sort of won them quite easily in my local area. I was runner up in Wales in them as well, and then kind of left it alone from the age of 16 because at the time my local league it wasn't. You couldn't play in it unless you were 18. So that's been relaxed now, which is good, which is, across the sport now we encourage youth in it, don't we? But then, once I was 18, I sort of played the local league and I gradually got better, tested myself, Super League, County, Matt knows the levels and stuff you go through, and you just got to put yourself out there, and it just escalated from there, but I'm glad it did, and it was, it's been a roller coaster ride, but it's been a lot of fun.
So what was your first taste then of playing big stage darts? When did you then make that breakthrough and start to appear, in some TV tournaments and stuff in the BDO circuit?
Yeah, I started playing the circuit, and I qualified for. It was called the International Darts League now. I think it's a defunct event now, but I qualified for that, and it mixed PDC and BDO players. So my first game was against Phil Taylor, beat him, got to the final, and also my biggest payday of about €15,000 at the time. So I just invested. I got on the Grand Slam because of it, which was the new event at the time. And then I was just regularly appearing on TV, and I got a taste for it. And it took me a while to get to grips with the TV stage. Obviously, my BDO debut didn't go well, but from there, I thought I was pretty good on the big stage. And a couple of years later, I'm carving out a pretty decent career. And it was a massive turnaround, sort of between 06 to 08, but it was just great times.
Of course, going on to 08. Where your major success came, was that something that when you set out, you were like, this is really where I want to be, getting up to these major finals? Or did you think you had the talent to be winning tournaments like that and eventually going on to become Lakeside champion?
Well, I went there seeded 1, so I obviously had a chance, but I still felt it was a big ask that year. But obviously Gary Anderson was the favourite at the time, even though he seeded 2. He got knocked out, and it fell into place really. I wouldn't say I was the best player in the world at the time. I just played a good event. You've got to play clever for a week, and I think I was pretty clever that week. And then towards the end, I played Friday, Saturday, Sunday. No thinking time, no days off to think, what's going to achieve. Just cracked on with it. And it's obviously, in terms of the sport, one of the greatest weeks of my life.
Mate, you're now playing on the tour. Is it a case of that? If you put together a good run, you might not even necessarily be, in your best form, whatever, but when you go in and you put in a good run, anything can happen.
There's normally a moment, isn't there, where we look at it and we go, that's when you've arrived, or that's the moment that you can use to build on. You skimmed over it very much at the start there. That victory over Phil Taylor on that first event. We go back to that time. This is when Phil Taylor was winning everything. He was dominant in that time. You got that victory, and is that sort of a moment for you that made you think, actually, if I can beat Phil Taylor, I can compete against the rest of the field?
Yeah, of course it does, and it was it kind of gave me the bug to go to the PDC as well, because I mixed with the PDC players, and you kind of speak to him, and it's like it was a strange environment because it's kind of, you know each other by association, and you just, like you said, you start playing against him. And I played Phil Taylor, I played Ronnie Baxter, who was a really solid player. He was in my group as well, and you're thinking, I can mix it here. And then you have a victory, you have a weekend where, or a tournament where you think, this could develop. And that was probably a pivotal moment. And like you said, Matt, there's a moment. It doesn't have to be when you played brilliant, just the victory. And it wasn't a great performance, but I won. And you beat Phil Taylor. It's going to do you a world of good, isn't it?
In them days as well. That was when Taylor was right at the very top.
Of course it was, and it was just a big opportunity for me. It was one of them where you think, I'm just going to have a go. It was a group. I knew I had the chance to win the other 2 games and go through. In my head, I'm thinking, have a go against Taylor, win the other 2. But I won the group, actually, so it was pretty good. But definitely another step in the right direction for me, and made me believe in myself a bit more.
Something you spoke about there as well is after that Lakeside win, obviously you didn't switch straight to the PDC at that point. You went back to try and defend the title again. Was there any was it you wanted to defend that title, or was it just you didn't think the PDC was right for you at that time?
Oh, no, I should have switched. Kind of regret. I think, I was in good form. I could have come here and then I'd done all right. I did it right eventually. But I just sort of not wasted a year, but I had a qualification in plumbing to continue. And obviously with the BDO, I was already in the Lakeside. I could cherry pick what I did. I didn't go to many events. And I just thought it was the right time. But, it's one of them. It's a quick decision, because I'd won the Lakeside, and then the day after you're thinking, getting phone calls, do you want to join the PDC and things, and I don't need this, because if you join the PDC, you've got to go to the next tournament. I couldn't say, hang on, I'll come in March. You've got to hit the ground running. It just happened too soon for me. But I wish I'd have gone straight after, because what else did I need to do in the BDO? But what is what it is, and we won't talk.
Did that guarantee put you back a little bit? Because obviously semi-final, runner-up and the winner from the Lakeside get guaranteed entry to the next year, don't they? So you don't have to go do the tour and do all the travelling. You got that guarantee. You're going back to the World Championship the year after, getting some TV time. That switch, you wouldn't have had that sort of guarantee. Did that sort of play in your mind a little bit?
It did, yeah. And you kind of have people saying you need to defend it, and I listened to people rather than just do what I wanted. And there's a contract. I was supposed to go back for 3 years, but obviously those contracts never held up. I had it show I could have gone. It was fine. I had it checked out, but it is what it is. I wish I hadn't gone back, because when I went back, I wasn't very good. And then I then joined the PDC on the back of, instead of being a world champion, of being battered in the Lakeside the year after. So, and it set me back, because the first year of the PDC was a real struggle. But it is what it is. I got to grips in the end. But maybe one of the regrets of my career, I should have just gone like Bunting did. When Bunting came across as a world champion, he won a tournament on his second attempt, didn't he, a Pro Tour? And I think that helped. I think if he'd have stalled for a year, it might have affected him, and I wish I'd done the same.
Well, the back end of that 2008 season, you entered the Grand Slam of Darts. Was it going and seeing how the structure is, and because it's completely different, isn't it? The two systems and how they approach the game. Was that Grand Slam of Darts a bit where you went, right, okay, I really want to switch over to the PDC after Lakeside? Yeah,
it was. I played in the Grand Slam. I lost out actually in the group stage, but I'd had the taste, I'd had the bug, and I knew I was going back next year. Because at the time, it was a bit more generous back in the day for the Grand Slam. If you won an event, you got 2 years out of it. It's a bit brutal now. It's tough, but how it should be. But I knew I was going back, and I just liked the feel of the events. And they were just, I don't want to hammer the BDO, but there was a difference, wasn't there, in professionalism. But they gave me my foothold. But there was a big change, and I enjoyed the environment, and the guys were good, and I just wanted to play against the best players in the sport. And for me, they were in the PDC at the time, and it was just the right move for me.
As alluded to in the intro, of course, you kept up your plumbing course as well. You sort of delayed your move across to finish that. Was that something you always felt that you needed to have to fall back on just in case?
Yeah, I think you've always got to have something. You never know, do you? I mean, as it happens, I've carved out a pretty good career for myself in media now, but you've got to play the percentages, haven't you? And I was in my last year, and I was doing events and having an exam on the Monday going back, but multiple choice. It was I was sorted on it. You wing it in the end, don't you? But it was had to do it. It's just a sensible. 3 years in, one more year to go. There's no point. So, in terms of being able to incorporate it on a BDO tour was easier than a PDC, because PDC you've got to commit.
And how long did you keep that up? Did you then go in and work as a plumber for a while after that, or was it just you had that qualification to?
No, I worked until I was in the Premier League. I think there was still time, wasn't there? When you get in the Premier League, it's like it was every week, aren't you? But I was lucky at the time. My boss Steve at the time, he got what I was doing. So sort of there was no issue of time off. He literally, I remember him saying to me once, Mark, if you're not in tomorrow, I know you're doing something else. And it was that freedom I had. And I remember speaking to players, I'd be getting flights, and they were like having to work late, get a late flight. They didn't have that freedom that some bosses get, that my boss gave me. So I'd have been a fool to quit plumbing, but once the Premier League came along, there just wasn't any time.
Is it one of those things, though, that helps you keep grounded? I mean, you see players now, some top-level players, Johnny Clayton still, I know he probably doesn't do much these days, but he still stays in work. Is it something you think's important to still have to keep you grounded, or do you feel that the players that still do that really should be, parking those jobs and going full-time on the darts?
What works for you? If you're having a bad time in darts, get yourself stressed out doing something else. Because when I was plumbing or doing it, my mind doesn't drift. I'm concentrating. I'm not focusing on darts, so it could distract you from what's going on, or it's like it can, not worry about you're still earning a living and not going, you're playing mat and I've got to hit this double top to earn money. It gives you that sort of freedom. But for me, it definitely helped. Some players, it depends how much you practice. I wasn't a big practicer, so what was the point in having a day off? I'm not going to practice all day. I think Johnny's the same, and it's hardly done him any harm, has it? So, I'm an advocate for it, but it is what's right for the players.
So moving on from you joining the PDC, you said it was a bit of a struggle at the beginning, but how confident were you as a player coming into the PDC that you could mix it with these guys? You'd already, beaten a number of them, in the Grand Slam, stuff like that. You knew some of the guys that also moved across. How confident were you in those initial years joining the PDC?
I wasn't overly confident at the beginning when I came across, and I remember my first weekend in Gladbeck. I mentioned earlier, Ronnie Baxter first round, and Ronnie Baxter solid four, but he absolutely hammered me. I'm thinking, well, I'm out my depth here, and I got some money on the board, and I ended up making the World Championship by £200, and then I went on to obviously do well at the World, and from then I was fine. But the first year was a struggle, and you doubt yourself, because I won my board I think 4 times in 1 year, and that's a poor return, but just about got on the Worlds because I swanmed off to Australia, Canada and America to play ranking events, and that just about got me in. But first year, real struggle. After that, I really started to believe, and I got myself quite high up in the rankings, got thinking high as 6, and so I mixed it. But yeah, the first year I wasn't confident. It was a big struggle, and going back to what we were saying earlier, maybe I should have come a year earlier when I was full of confidence.
Then 2010, was that probably your best year as a PDC pro? Was that what you think, looking back?
Back end of 2010, 2011, obviously the Premier League sandwich in the middle was a bit of a shocker, but everything else was pretty good. I mean, the World Cup was played. I was fortunate, really. The back end of the World Cup was played in December, and they needed some Premier League picks. And I kind of put myself in the window there because I was like probably the best player in that World Cup. And then when beat Taylor in the 2011-10, it overlaps, doesn't it? World Championship. But yeah, definitely I agree with you. That was my best spell. 2010, 2011, as a player, I was consistent. I was pretty much getting quarter semis on the big stage all the time, and it was the best period of my career, and it was great fun.
We'll come on to those World Cups shortly, because they're a story in their own. But you mentioned there that one Premier League campaign that you had, and it was a real struggle. But you started really well in that, didn't you?
Yeah, I did okay. I beat Wade on the opening night. I averaged 100. I beat Adrian in week 4, averaging 110. But the form deserted me, and when your form deserts you, you don't want to be. You want to go off to a pro tour. And at the time, the pro tour was no tour card. Was it maybe just a tour card system, or maybe not? But you could get a few easy games just to get yourself the wins. But you're in the Premier League. You're going back. I was facing Anderson, Wade, Taylor, Barneveld, Whitlock, and you're just thinking, I can't get out of this. And I got in a real bad rut, and look, it didn't go well for me. But maybe it happened too soon for me. But you're not going to decline the invite, are you? If you're invited into it, you're going to go. But it probably all happened in the space of 2 months. My pick. I was never. kind of October, I was never in the mix. Come December, I was kind of nailed on, really. It was a bit strange, but a learning experience, a tough learning experience, but one that, I don't look back on fondly. But it was great fun. It takes some doing to qualify, and I did that. But it just didn't go as I planned, did it?
Mate, as alluded to there, when you're in those ruts, how important are those events to come thick and fast to try and get yourself back into form, play your way into some sort of winning ways again?
It can be a blessing or it can be a nightmare, because if you've gone one weekend, you've not got the results, sometimes you go home and you think about what's coming next, aren't you? And it's like, I've got more darts to come, and if you've not got that sort of confidence. But going back to what you said there about the Premier League, and you said there, did it come too soon? It's quite interesting, actually, because the results that you was getting at the time would suggest that you should have been in the Premier League. But what you've just been saying about, like, you didn't feel confident when you switched and you weren't sure about that, it sounds like you wasn't quite ready in terms of where you are at the moment in that period of time.
No, I wasn't ready, but like I said, you get an invite, you're going to go, aren't you? And it was just, it's kind of mentioned that kind of finished me, the Premier League. It just didn't finish me, it just finished me at the elite level. I knew I couldn't mix it with them guys on a weekly basis, but I could beat them on a one-off game or in a tournament. I could still get to quarterfinal, semis, but just playing against them guys week in, week out, I just wasn't there. And who knows if I'd have got another crack at it, because I think if it had gone to 10 players the year after, it took another year, I'd have probably got one more go, because I'd done a lot that year, but it wasn't to be. And it just, like, not all learning experiences are great, and that was a real learning curve that was tough. And it was unenjoyable. I think I lost 8-1 4 weeks on this trot, and I remember after one, I went home instead of going to a Barnsley for event, because I couldn't stomach it. So nothing's ever made me withdraw from an event. So it was tough, but like I said, it's just one of them. You look back, I had a go, and I think the guys who were in it knew I was better than that. But you can't show anything. You just got to get the job done, and it was really tough.
You mentioned there missing the Pro Tour, which goes back to what I just said there. Sometimes it can be a blessing having all the events come thick and fast, and sometimes it can be a nightmare. We use the word ready quite a lot with the Premier League, and everyone talks about who's ready, who's not ready, or they need another year. What do you think is the bit that ready is? What does that look like? Because you said that you don't feel like you was ready at that point, but you're not going to turn it down. No one would. What do you think was missing there that if you'd have had a go the next year would have been?
Well, I was picked on a purple patch, not on consistency, and I did a few things right, and I just put myself in the window. But had I'd done it for 6 months and sort of proved myself a bit more, I think I'd have done all right. And the year after, I generally think I'd have done all right. I wouldn't have made the top 4 the year after, but I knew what I was expecting. I wouldn't have lost 8-1 every week, and I was. It became an obsession trying to get back in. I thought, I've got to have one more go, because that wasn't me. But I got to the quarters, semis of everything that year, and I thought, right, I'm in the picture now. I'm in the picture. And ultimately losing to Kevin in that Players' Championship final, then 2-3 days later having to play a first round tie of the Worlds when I was still a bit down, losing to Richie Burnett sort of ended my chance of going back in. And that was like a defining moment in my career, really. That 4 days, I think that's where it took a little dent in my confidence that I never recovered from, but still went on to do okay. But yeah, that was a good year, but tough year, and at times heartbreaking. Was
that 2011 Players' Championship the one that you think is the one that got away?
Yeah, definitely, and it's one of those tournaments. When I look back now, had I lost to Phil Taylor, who's in the other half of the draw, normal services resumed. But because I'd lost to Kevin, and he played well, he was better than me that night. But it was a tournament where I was like, I runner up, it was great. But I was so down after. But as the scheduling, we were ready to go to the Worlds. I've lost on the Sunday. I played the first round of the World Championship on the Thursday against Richie Burnett, and that was a nasty first round draw as well. And I was under pressure. I felt under pressure going there that night, and it was a brilliant game. But unfortunately, I lost. And losing the first round of the Worlds is hard to take. The first night, it was even harder to take, and that was a real low point for me. And I knew then my chance of going back in the Premier League was slim. But for me to go back in, you're thinking just normal service resume, a Phil Taylor, Adrian Lewis, James Wade final. Andy Hamilton then went on a ridiculous run, and fair play to him. But it was one of them defining moments. You had to regroup, but I found that sort of period tough.
You said something very dart playery there, where you went out at the World Championship on the very early phase in the first game, and that's something like you don't want to do as a dart player. I know when they used to put the scheduling out, I didn't want to be in the first couple of nights, because you don't want to sit and watch the whole event and feel like you've never been a part of it, because if you're in that early first couple of days and you're out, it's like you was never there.
I was the second player eliminated. Jamie, you first. But how do I remember that? You've got so much time. I actually went home I went and watched a few Man United games, a few beers with my mates. I went to New York on Boxing Day, came back New Year's Eve, and the tournament was still on. You know, and you're like, it's a great event, and when you're in it, you just ride it. But when you get knocked out on the first night, it's like, oh, it's horrendous. And you're like, and I knew I'd had a tough draw, and I felt pressure going there, and ultimately succumbed to that pressure, and I blew it really. But it was a tough game, and I had all that angle of me and Richie being both Welsh and both ex-world champions. It got a bit of coverage as well. I was the highest seed to fall, and yeah, it was tough to take, but you just had to wait for that World Championship to finish, and then you just had to crack on. But it was a tough watch, I've got to admit.
We focused on quite a lot of the negatives of your career there, but you've had some great runs in tournaments. You've made semi-finals, finals. Of course, we mentioned the World Cup as well. Getting to the final in the first ever World Cup, that must have been a really special moment for you, playing for Wales alongside Barry Bates, who you've known for a long time.
Oh, it was brilliant. It was a tournament. It was kind of a bit chaotic because there was so much snow about. It was like, what's going to happen? Is it going to go ahead? And obviously, it was the first ever one. But it was brilliant. I mean, and I loved playing alongside Barry. He was a good laugh, and we didn't know what to expect. It was a round robin format. We played a lot of darts, but it was one of the most enjoyable weekends I've ever had. And it was when I think it was one of the best performances. I think I beat, because the way the format went, I played 2 singles rubbers in the final against Stompy and Barneveld, and I stayed on basically. But I maintained a level of sort of 101, average 102, and I thought, right, come on, this is where I want to be. And I kind of made me believe that I could mix it. And I think that's what got me in the Premier League. Obviously, beating Phil Taylor helped as well, I say. Beating Phil Taylor got me in, but that put me in the equation going into the Worlds. And yeah, it's a brilliant weekend. And like I said, represent your country. We're quite patriotic Wales anyway. And it's gone from strength to strength. You see Johnny and Gezi now, they're pretty much favourites every year. And it is just a great feeling.
Before that success for Johnny and Gezi, you made the final again with Gezi back in 2017. That had come after a tough run in your career. Was that a real highlight going into those later stages of your career?
It was brilliant. And I kind of knew it was coming to an end. I knew that I'd be falling out the year after. So to get that one little run and then just to play alongside, I'd love to have played alongside Johnny, which is probably never going to happen now. But playing alongside Gezi, just sort of so confident, it rubbed off on me. And he was like, just backed himself. There was no like tactics. There was never any tactics. He went, I'll go first and you'll beat the next man. And he rubbed off on me that weekend. He sort of restored some confidence in me, and it was a great weekend. And we lost to Michael and Barneveld in the final, but obviously they were a good pair, weren't they? But yeah, it was good. And it was like a little swanton for me. It kind of like, that's probably the last sort of massive highlight I had, but really enjoyed it. And I just wish I'd had a few more cracks. I wish I could have played with Johnny really as well. Nothing against the guys I played with, but I like to play alongside Johnny, but it is what it is, and I think the Welsh darts team's in good hands at the minute, isn't it?
As a tournament as well, that tournament has grown and grown over the years. The initial one where you made the final, did you know that it was really going to be like a special event? Did it really feel different playing for your country? And obviously we don't play a lot of pairs games on the PDC circuit. So how good did it feel to represent your country in that? And then obviously now seeing the success that they've had later on with Johnny and Gezi.
Yeah, it was great. It was. I wasn't sure about it at first. Well, I don't know how it was going to, but obviously I loved it because there wasn't many Welsh players at the time, so it was another TV appearance that I was basically going to get in every year. But I think it's fantastic now. I think there's that different vibe. I think people like it, and like you said, it's gone from strength to strength. The teams are getting stronger, and a great event that the PDC have really backed, and rightly so. We're becoming a worldwide sport. The World Cup helps that. And I get to work on it now, and I really like it, watching the different nations, seeing different players, and getting on that big stage and being able to put themselves in the window, and then gives them the bug because a lot of those world players, they come back for the World Championship then, and we see them play individually. But I think it's a great event, and one that I think people are taking to, and the pairs element something different as well. I think people would like to see more pairs, but you've got to work with it. But no, I think it's a great event, and and obviously Wales have been a big part of it, which is great as well.
How do you prepare for a tournament like that? Do you meet up with your fellow pros and prepare beforehand? Do you play a lot of doubles? And then when you're in the tournament, how does it work when you're looking at the draw and you're thinking, I'm going to go first here, you go second, especially when you were maybe leading that side and making those decisions? Do you look at your opposition and go, I think we can target this game and that game, or do you think, we'll just go out and beat whoever's in front of us?
Yeah, it became a tactical thing sort of in the third year when I was with Richie then, and we rarely sort of switch things. We occasionally did, but yeah, it's you kind of if you've got a player that's struggling, which I was one year, I was with Richie. You get yourself to the pairs. So I said, Rich, you need to try, and we need to read who their weaker players, because I know you'll take them, Rich, and I'll take one. And you've got to think about tactically how you're feeling, the form, and it just adds that extra edge, playing for someone in your country. But in terms of sort of practicing, I never met up with players. I lived the opposite end of the country to a Welsh player as well, so my partner. But no, it was good fun, and every player I played with, it was great to be along. And as Welsh are really passionate, and we perform well. And it's a good event, and like I said, Wales are one of the top teams now.
So looking back on your career so far to date, what's been your favourite moments as a PDC pro? Is it those World Cups? Is it making the final of the Players' Champs, semi-finals of the Worlds? What's your real highlight moment?
Beating Taylor has got to be the moment, because it was just, the reaction to it was unreal. And Taylor rarely lost then. He hadn't lost. He was two-time, 16, he won the title the last 2 years. But I beat him 5-2 as well. And you rarely see that. But I was pleased I held myself together, because the year before I played him, I lost 6-0 and I won like 4 legs. Didn't hold my. I played Taylor, not the ball, and I was nervous, edgy from the word go. But the year after, I was like, yeah, this is, I've got it now. I'm in the right place to beat him. And it was fantastic. And alongside obviously the World Cup, particularly the first one, Barry Bates, one of my favourite moments. We had such a laugh. It was brilliant. I think the favourite moment was something he did rather than me. The 116 against Australia. But no, those 2 moments, which came in a period of like, I think 5 weeks. Well, it was a fantastic part of my career, and definitely the standout moments in the PDC.
You mentioned playing alongside Richie Burnett as well. For those that don't know Richie, he's quite a unique character, isn't he?
He can moan, mine, but I can listen. I can listen to his stories, and he's like, in a way, he was my hero, because when he won the World Championship in 1995. On a say, and I never thought that I'd be the next Welshman to win it, but it was great spending time with him. But it just bonkers, and it was you were never going. You were talking about tactics earlier. We were never going to do that with Rich. He just goes, do what you want, leave it to it. But it was just good to be around. He made me laugh, and without even trying to make me laugh, and it was good fun. And we had a dart to get to the final one year, and we'd have played the High Brexes that year if we'd hit that dough. I'm convinced we'd have won the World Cup that year. I think we'd have been too good for the High Brexes, but we missed it, and that was it. It was one of them, but that was a really good spell. And just having Richie back on the tour, but it caused me some heartbreak as well. I talked about that game earlier, but just on the whole, a good guy, so funny as well. And I really enjoyed playing alongside him.
So Mark bigged you up in the beginning as one of the nicest men on the tour, but was there any players that you clashed with that you didn't see eye to eye with on the tour?
Not really. I mean, I've had a little run-in with James once, but I think I'm on a long list there, haven't I? But it was it's one of them. I had a run-in with James in a Euro tour. Played the week after, it was fine. It's just you're in that sporting environment and you're there to win and you just crack on. But no, I generally got on with most people. Maybe that was my problem. I was too nice, but you're in that environment. It's individual sport. It's going to get heated, but you've got to move on because you spend so much time with each other. You don't want added distractions. So I tried to keep myself out of sort of little bits of needle and stuff. And I don't think it would have helped my game anyway. I wasn't that sort of player who needed that aggression.
I mean, darts is such an individual sport anyway. When you do have those incidents, you've kind of got nobody to turn to back you up or, sort of relate to what you're going through. How much of it is just in your head? You're thinking, he's doing my head in here. How do you break out of that?
Yeah, Darryl Gurney and everyone had a little running with it. Yeah. I was like, we laugh about it now because I was a large 1-1-1 kind of towards me. Like, what are you doing? But it worked. I couldn't play them for 2 sets. I was getting wound up. I kicked his foot. Because he does this little thing where he leaves his arm out, and I was like, do you want to take a photo of it? And I got really riled up. But I actually really got on well with Darryl. He's a good guy. But it was just like, what's going on here? But yeah, it just didn't work for me. I deviated from playing. I was trying to just get it stuck into Darryl. And less said about that, the better. But like I said, it just didn't work for me. I can't be involved in a game with Needle. It doesn't work for me. I just want to focus. And I was never that sort of player.
For some players, it does work. I mean, Taylor's been renowned as... A lot of players say he's a big wind-up merchant. AD Lewis the same. Obviously, Gezi on the hockey with his celebrations. That can rile a lot of people the wrong way. But do you feel that some players just need that little bit of extra edge to get the better of their opponent? Yeah,
you look at Gezi. He gets pumped up, doesn't he? It works for him. Sometimes he won the World Cup and a week after largely against Johnny Clayton because that's how he plays. It's not treatment for an individual player. That's how he plays. And it works for him. And you look how successful he is. But it just wasn't for me. I mean. I was a stroppy loser, but I tried to not get involved in any sort of needle. And then if it ever did get out of hand, I wouldn't fancy fighting anyone. I'm not the hardest lad around, far from it. Talk a great game, but no. But just it wasn't for me. But I do like watching it happen. Now from a media point of view, Lou in the back room, it happens. We like it, don't we? That in a way, it's a bit of it adds something, but it just wasn't for me, and it was nothing I could use to sort of use to my advantage. And it was just really wouldn't have helped me.
Do you see a lot of that, Matt, when you've been playing on the tour as well, players that maybe haven't seen eye to eye? Because you're with them week in, week out. The circuit's so busy. You're going to run into them one day or another soon. How quickly do you have to just forget things that have happened on the hockey?
Well, you said it there, didn't you, Mark? You had that needle with James Wade in the Euro Tour. You played him the very next week.
Yeah.
You've literally got no time, have you? You're against each other all the time. You travel together. You're on the same planes. We're all in the same sort of hotels. A lot of the times, like a player's hotel, isn't there, where we're all there. You're eating breakfast with them the very next day. You've not really got that time to have a proper fallout, have you?
No, it's just, for me, there was no point. It was like I said, the James incident, it was just we had a disagreement. Week after we played in Milton Keynes, you crack on. It's one of them. And it was, like I said, having grudges in a sport just wasn't for me, because it just hypes the game up unnecessarily when you play them next. And I played Darryl a few. I've gone back to the Darryl Gurney one. I played him in Minehead, and it just sort of gave me a distraction. He hammered me as well, and it's like an added distraction. But it was like we laugh about it now, and I like Darryl. I like the way he plays aggressively, but I keep harping on. It just didn't work for me. I couldn't have that added distraction of like I really want to beat him. You just play, and But like Matt said, you didn't close your pockets. You mean we're here now at the Grand Prix, the hotel. If any need, you can't avoid each other, can you, Lewis? We're all here, so. Better to get along for me, but I've got to admit, now I'm on the media side, I do like it when it pops up in a game now and then.
Well, another one of the nicest men on the tour, Paul Lim. He's someone that you've got a little bit of beef with, isn't he?
Oh, I stand by that. When he played me, it was like the best he's played. I was like, at the time, we used to have a prelim at the beginning of the night. He was in it, and I had the winner. And he didn't play well. I thought, this'll do me, and he was unreal that night. It was the Monday before Christmas, and the crowd like, Lim. It's such an easy chant, and I still wake up in hot sweats now. But like, it's like I have a laugh about it. I see him now. What did he say to me? He said to me last year, "You're still doing a commentary." I said, "What? You got me the job, Paul." He kind of ended my career. It's like my last ever game. But it was like one of them where it was an incredible atmosphere to play, and the result hurt. But you couldn't help but sort of applaud how he played. But I didn't see it coming. I was convinced I was going to win that game, and he almost hit a 9 darts the round after. But it's like I like seeing him pop up now. What a ridiculous appetite for the sport he's got, still wanting to play at his age, and credit to him. But he did my head in that night.
I mean, how difficult is it when the whole crowd is against you for no reason, no fault of your own? They just take to an opponent like Lim because he's a legend of this sport. He's been around for so long, and how difficult is it to come against not only him but then the whole crowd cheering your opponent on?
It was tough that night. It was one of the best atmospheres I've played in, one of the toughest as well. Because, like you said, it was nothing personal against me. They picked their favourite, and they had a good song, didn't they? The Lim, and at the time, I think they had these inflatables. You could bang them together, making this noise. Like, what is going on here? But he did that because the way he played, he got them on side. I won the first set, and they were quiet. Then he started pushing darts. I think, right, we're going to get behind him, and it was like, the crowd's like Ali Pali. Matt's played as well. You start missing a double, hey, and then they don't let you off. Then it's a brutal crowd, but it's an atmosphere. You've got to deal with it. They're part of it, and it is tough. But that was a tough night. And obviously it was the last time I played on TV, and it was not an ideal way to go out. But who does go out in at the top? It's tough to do. But it's a game where I think if I played it again, I'm convinced he would never have played like that again. He's got it in his locker, but I just thought he was in a perfect place that time, and he was the better player and deserved to beat me.
Matt, how is it for a player like yourself when bread and butter of your career might be on the Pro Tour, and then you get into a bigger event, and all of a sudden you're dealing with a crowd of that size at Ali Pali? They're having a great time. They might have sunk a few pints by the time you're on stage. How do you deal with that sort of thing?
You're just thrusted in, aren't you? There's no preparation for this. There's no sort of build-up to it. They don't go around, show you where the cameras are, do any of this, do they? They just literally go, stand on that X, you're about to go play darts. And you've got to try and work it out yourself, really, haven't you? You've either watched it or you've got a little bit behind you that you're going to go, I'm going to go do this sort of thing. And I think that's probably something that maybe we could see develop in darts, do you think?
Yeah, it is. It is tough. It's like, I suppose you can go, I don't know about you, Matt, on my debut at the Ali Pali, I was made aware the stage was massive, and it is a big stage. I went the day before when it was closed, a little walk around, and I watched some of the darts, but, you could be drawn first. So you haven't got that luxury. But I did that. But I definitely think, I'm not sure about where cameras are, but like have a look at, I'd advert anybody making a debut this year, if you're not drawn first night, go and have a little nosy, because Ali Pali is just something special, but something quite intimidating as well. So go and have a little nosy. But it's a great to be a part, but at the same time, it's heartbreaking. You've been involved, Matt, and you win a game, it's a great buzz, but when you lose there, it's that time of year as well, Christmas, it's tough to watch players when you want to be in the mix. It's the tournament that tests you as a player for me, the pressure, where it is, and it's a life change as well. The prize money, incredible. It always has been, to be fair. They've moved with the times, and like PDC never stands still with stuff like that. And the prize money keeps going up, but it adds pressure. And it's just the event that got me more nervous than any other event.
Just to pick your brain on perception as well. People say the big stage, the difference between stage and the floor and all that. Now, I speak to a lot of players about the perception of the stage. Mine was, you've got the blue stage, the blue surrounding, you've got this little tiny looking dartboard thing in the middle, because everything just blurs into a big wall, basically. And you've got the same before, we had the red stage and the red surrounding. It just all blurs in. And to me, it makes it look, I use the word deep, but a lot of people say it feels longer when you go up on that sort of World Championship stage. How was it for you?
Yeah, do you know what? It feels a bit of a blur now. It's hard to remember it. It really threw me, because obviously Ali Pali was getting the World Champs getting more successful. They flipped the arena, didn't they? And then they made it. So then I had to map my route up, and I was like, where am I going here? So my first ever game on the new thing, I was like, that threw me a little bit. But when you're up there, I generally did all right at the World Champs. I had some really good games there. I rarely let myself down, lost first round twice. And I really embraced that stage. I loved it, but it was like the most nerve-wracking. But the greatest feeling when you won, the greatest feeling was being in it at Christmas, because you go home, enjoy Christmas, but your head was getting back down to Ali Pali, and it is my favourite event, and I still love it now, even though I'm not playing.
You did something not many people have actually done, because they haven't done it very much, a third, fourth place playoff.
Yeah,
what's that like when you've actually lost and you got to come back and try again?
It was tough, because I knew Barney was up for it. No, I'm joking. They just couldn't. It is not a game that you want to play in, is it? But for me, there was £20,000 extra worth, and it got me into the top 32. So you look back, it was like a pivotal moment. But no one wants to play third and fourth place playoffs, but it is what it is. And PDC trialled it, and clearly it's not a regular fixture. You look at the World Cup in football, it's just, they don't want to play that either. But it's strange you play it, but. You got there, and it was like all about the final, and we were like a support act, and we were both heartbroken what happened the night before. You get so close to a world final, trying to play again, and it was a tough do, but it was funny, because I was kind of knew I was going to win, because Raymond just couldn't be bothered. He wasn't practicing. I seem to remember he going to me, this isn't even a proper game. I thought, well, I've got this. But good moment in terms of where it sent me in my career, but I don't particularly ever want to play in one again.
Well, Barney, you mentioned there occasionally could throw his toys out the pram. You weren't really one for that, but a little story in Gibraltar when you lost your rag slightly. This is maybe the one time that you did go over the edge.
Look, I wasn't happy with the setup, and it was the cut-off for Blackpool as well, and I was in the sort of second to last spot, so under a bit of pressure, and I draw on Paul Amos, who he's not familiar with many people, he could play, and we were on this squash court, and I had a bee on my bonnet when I went in there. I don't know, when you're probably like that. You go out looking for a fight. I'm looking at you. I reckon,
yeah, all the time. Yeah,
but no, it's one of them. I just had a bee on my bonnet, and I've walked in there, and I'm throwing on the boards, and they're not right. And then I've gone to the tournament director, bless him, Tommy Cox at the time. Put this ball on the map. I said, "Come on, Tommy, let's sort this out." And unfortunately, we couldn't swing it round. And I've lost the game, and I'm looking for any excuse. I've fallen out with Tommy. I've chucked my bottle. We played in the squash court. I don't like playing darts. I like playing squash. You know that, Lou, don't we? But I was like, what's going on here? And I was like, what are we doing? And I was a bad loser. And I've had some shockers, but that was one of the worst ones. And I let myself down. But just venting, you do it, and it's the rare occasion. And I was rarely fined in the DRA, but that was when I left that arena. I was like, I know there's an email coming. Do you know what I mean? I let myself down, but it's sporting at your vent, don't you? I think a lot of players need that 10 minutes, and unfortunately, in that 10 minutes, I did all my damage after the game. But it is one of them. I rarely did it. I was a stroppy loser, man. I have a shocker in what was it? We played some Euro tours. Matt will play him. You play two, lose that last game, you feel like you've wasted your time, Matt, don't you? And I've come off, and I thought something's having it. I've gone to my table, and I think Joe's there. I've got my headphones from my iPod, and I'm like, these are having it. So I wrapped them around my finger. I couldn't break them, and I cut my finger, and it started bleeding. And Cullen just went, should we go? And let's go. And I was like, I was a stranky loser, not a disrespectful loser. I'd never disrespect my opponent. I'd maybe too hard on myself. But rarely I lost my temper with people, just myself. But I could be a bad loser.
You say you're being hard on yourself. If we can take this to a bit of a darker place, when your throw started to break down and you started to suffer with Dartitis, just explain to those but maybe don't know what that is like for a, this is your sport, this is your livelihood, and all of a sudden your throw is starting to let you down and you're noticing that you can no longer play the way that you did.
Yeah, I mean, we compare it to the yips in golf, don't we? But it was, it was a strange thing, I think 2014 time. I remember just thinking, what's going on here? And I know it's very much a mental thing, so you kind of try and distance yourself from it. And I refuse to use the word Dartitis just as a mental thing. And I just called it like a technical issue, but I knew it was getting worse. And players were starting to notice it as well. I remember playing a game once in a Euro Tour qualifying. I could see people watching me because I was all over the place, couldn't let it go, and I was conscious of that. And it was a real testing time in my career. And you know what? At the end of the day, I'd never recovered. I had a little run, but I've never ever recovered the confidence. And the knock-on effect of it was horrendous. It's that period was the most down, upset I've been in the sport. And I remember losing to Adrian Lewis at the match play when I had it. I was fine, and it kicked in at the back end, and I knew then, I was like, I can't get rid of it. I'm never going to get rid of it. And it was like, I was in tears after the game. I knew that, I'd gone because I couldn't play the way I wanted to play. I was having to adapt, but that's not how you want to feel comfortable. I was having to sort of, cater for it, and it was a horrible feeling, and one that crept up on me. And I was convinced it was because I was mentally weak, but Eric got it, and Eric Bristow wasn't mentally weak, far from it. But I thought it was a pressure thing. I thought maybe take myself out of the pressure. I'd practice at home. I'd have it in practice, and then it was like, I could have a practice with my mate, and it was there, and I could not get rid of it. And to this day, I haven't got it anymore. I throw pretty well, but my confidence shell shocked, and my technique's still not great. And it was kind of the beginning of the end, really.
Didn't you go and see a coach to try and help you with that as well, if I'm not mistaken? You tried to see someone.
Yeah, it's a psychologist, coach. I tried everything. I tried, you name it. I tried it. My sponsors, Winmore, catered me with a board. So I felt if I just threw at bigger targets, they made a board with big segments just to get rid of him. I threw with 4 darts, 6 darts, 9 darts. We just lobbing him. I tried everything, and it came down to when you're in a pressure situation, it ramped up, and I was conscious, and then opponents didn't enjoy playing me. And I remember Yella Clarkson wasn't happy with my technique in a game once, and I said, it is what it is. You deal with it. I mean, it's harder for me, trust me. And he didn't mean anything, but I wasn't putting him off, but it was putting him off. I wasn't trying to. And then it was horrendous, and it was just every time it made you panic. It does make you panic, and you've seen it with Berry as well, bless him, and he's done well, really well, Berry, being impressed with him. But his was different to mine. I couldn't get the release, he couldn't get it up into the set position, but it's just a strange thing. When you set out, and Matt's sitting next to me now, you convince yourself it's never going to happen to you, and you've got a nice action, and it came from absolutely nowhere. But wow, did it hang around, and it was, it was kind of sort of to the detriment of my career, and I never recovered.
Did you feel the support of your colleagues, your fellow players? Obviously, they're there to beat you, but it's sort of something that everyone can rally around as something that nobody wants to happen to anybody. It's like the equivalent of a footballer not being able to kick a ball anymore.
Yeah, it's kind of, yeah. I mean, Michael, one of our best players, Matt Van Gerwen, he actually said to me, I feel sorry for you. And I was like, cheers, Mike. And it was horrific. Every game was a chore. I still won some games, but there was no way enjoyable, Lewis. I took no pleasure in some. I played Stuart Kellett once, I remember, and I felt so sorry. I really like Stuart, great guy. I think I just ruined the game for him, but I won, and it was like, what's going on? And then you kind of think, right, fresh start the next week, it'll go, and it's there again, and then right, it'll go there again. You have a little spell, it's always there. But I managed to make it sort of, I adapt. I became lungy, but it was it's just the way it was. It wasn't good to watch. I never liked watching myself back. And in the end, it was never going to hold up in big situations. I was never going to win an event throwing or playing like that. So I just had to sort of plod on and get some last 16s, the odd quarter final, and just make the best of a bad situation. But look, it's the lowest I've ever been in the sport, and it sort of confident-wise, and now I never recovered.
So moving on from there, then your career sort of started to fade out, but the opportunity to become a commentator stepped in. How did that come about? We see you regularly now on Sky, ITV, future PDC events. So was that something that you always thought you could potentially do, or were you just gifted an opportunity and thought, actually I can make something of this? I
thought I could do it. I mean, it's one thing knowing your stuff. You've got to lay it out in the right way. I mean, I worked on the Championship League of Darts, which is an event which run on BBC, and obviously put myself in the window. Sky got in touch, and I'll give it due. Sky, they just chucked me in. Go on, you commentating, you and then you have a go at leading and stuff. And I love it, and it's kind of. I never thought I'd love it as much as I do, but I do. It's brilliant. It's not a job. I enjoy it. It never bothers me having to commentate on a game. I like the atmosphere of who I work with, Sky, ITV, and the media room. We have a good atmosphere there, don't we? And I think it's come along at a perfect time for me. When I first did it, there was kind of a bit of resentment. I still wanted to be a player, but that doesn't bother me anymore. And do you know what? So lucky, and I'm fortunate that I got to have a go. And it's occupying the majority of my life now, majority of my career. And like I said, if you enjoy your job, it's not a job, is it? And I love it. And never when I go to an event does it feel like a job or a chore.
Matt, you've had a few examples of yourself giving a go at commentary recently. Is it something that is easy to do? Is it easy to step into when you've got the knowledge of being a player, or as guys like yourself, is there a certain knack that you've just got to do it?
You learn a lot, don't you, when you're playing, and you know what players are going through, and it's easier to paint the picture if you've been there and you've sort of been in that position yourself. And yeah, it's interesting. You mentioned that to begin with, you sort of resented it a little bit because you wanted to play and things still along that time. Does that mean the playing sort of gone now for you?
For now, yeah, it has. It's just I've had some surgery on my shoulder anyway this year, so that's kind of set me back. But dedication, Matt. I don't practice enough, and I've not got that bug to get back at the minute. And I've got the way my calendar works out next year. I don't think I could try and be a professional dart player. So for now, it's on the back burner. And you know what? The longer you put it off, it's when it's harder to come back. And you see players. I really was determined to be a player who left would come back. Once you leave, it's hard to come back. But at the minute, it's not the forefront of my priorities playing. I enjoy the media side. I think I'm okay at it as well, and I enjoy it. I like doing it. I like doing different things. I've had a little go at like doing a feature for Sky Sports, sort of interviewing a player, Chris Dobie, this week, which I like doing. I like speaking to players, listening to what they're going through, and I always thought I judged players. I judge Wayne. I thought he gave up on his career a bit too early, but now I've done it. I feel it's the right decision. You've got to do what's right for you, and for me at the minute, playing certainly not that, and I enjoy the media side. You
said there that you'd like to listen to players. Was you always a thinker even when you was playing as well, like trying to analyse or trying to work out what people are going through and thinking?
Oh, I was a thinker, yeah, big time. Oh, wow, was I? Probably my downfall. I couldn't blank stuff out, but it's working for me now. It's good to be like that in this sport, this area of the sport, but as a player, you don't want to overthink, but it's worked for me now. Like I said, the media side I really like. I'm part of a great team as well. The majority of my work's with Sky, and I love the people I work with. I think we do the job well, but at the same time we enjoy ourselves and have a good laugh. And it's still got that sort of dart environment as well, where you have a bit of laugh, bit of banter. The media room's a good crack. The journalists there as well. It's a good atmosphere to be in, and I really love it.
So with the analytical brain you've got, what do you think that darts and the punditry side, what do you think could be improved on going forwards in the future?
I don't know, because at the minute, I think the players we've got at the minute, I think are a great batch. You've got a bit of everything, and it is the players that make it exciting, but just different winners and stuff. And I love the fact that I love Michael Van Geuren, my own best friend, but I like the fact that he's become a little bit more vulnerable. It's added to the game, and I think the sport at the minute is in a great place. PDC obviously always sort of injecting incentives and injecting money. Everybody says you shouldn't be motivated by money, but that's what we are. The prize, the incentives to you put yourself on the world stage, and the opportunity there for any player. And I never liked Barry's terminology. If you win, it's all. But it's true, you win, and it's life changing. I just think it's great at the minute, and pressure of it all, but adds the excitement, and I think the sport's in a great space.
So if we could reset the clock, go back to the beginning of your career, would you do it all again, or are you happy with what you've achieved in the sport?
Oh, I'd do it again, yeah. I think it's been brilliant. The highs, when you get those highs, the lows are horrendous, but the highs are an absolute buzz. Beating Phil Taylor, literally couldn't sleep till 4 a.m. because the General was still going, and I was playing Adrian the next day. But I'd definitely do it again. I met some great people. And I'm still keeping in touch with a lot of them now. I think it's just a great sport to be involved, from the players to the media side. I think there's a great team in there, and like I said earlier, I think the sport's in a great space.
Thanks for joining us, Mark. It's been a pleasure.
No, I've enjoyed it. I'm really good though, sort of going over things, and yeah, thanks for having me.